You are listening to WPAT 9:30 a.m.
The following program is presented by its producer, host, and sponsors.
Good morning, and assalamu alaikum, and welcome to the hour before the hour before, during the overnight shift. And it is Saturday, May 4th, 2019. Special shout out to Brother O'Baby, who has navigated the jumbo jet from the beautiful continent of Africa. He's standing here taking a bow. He navigated the jet from Africa and landed it safely within the space of this brief station break that you just heard. Landed it in Lower Manhattan, where I am right now. And my name is Dawoud the Renegade Sufi, and I will be with you for a while. I will be bringing you beautiful and arcane music. Let's start out with something that you might not have heard before. A couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I don't remember how long ago, I played a piece by the great Indian master Ravi Shankar, wherein he experimented with mixing Indian classical music with elements of Western music. One of his childhood heroes, the great Sarod master, Ali Akbar Khan, who was also the son of the great master musician Ustad Alahuddin Khan, attempted the same thing with an album called Garden of Dreams. This is a piece called Two Lovers that was actually written some 700 years ago by a Persian composer who had emigrated to India. His name was Amir Khusro. Let's give this a listen. Jimi Hendrix, Castles Made of Sand, from the album Axis Bold as Love. And for those of you who have listened attentively to that song, you will notice that the main guitar part was recorded backwards. Hendrix did that. He would go into the studio and he actually told the engineers, flip the tape over so that it records backwards, and he started playing some weird stuff that didn't make any sense to anybody, and they told him, come on, Jimmy, go home and sleep it off. But he said, okay, turn the tape back over and play it, and every note was in place. He was thinking the music backwards. Not many people are able to do that. And before that, Two Lovers, a modern adaptation bridging elements of East and West of an ancient melody by Amir Khusro and performed by Ali Akbar Khan. And you are still listening to the Overnight Shift on AM 930 WPAT. Speaking of Jimi Hendrix, let's take things into a slightly unusual direction here, but of course that's what I'm here for. I bring you unusual and arcane music. This is a piece that Jimi Hendrix wrote and originally performed, and this version was arranged and performed by the Kronos Quartet, who's a chamber music quartet who concentrates largely on modern composers, although I'm sure that they could handle Beethoven and Handel with the rest of them. Here's a piece, their arrangement of Jimi Hendrix's Purple Haze. 'Cause I can't help but feel the way I do. 'Cause I can't help but feel the way I do. 'Cause I can't help but feel the way I do. 'Cause I can't help but feel the way I do. 'Cause I can't help but feel the way I do. 'Cause I can't help but feel the way I do. 'Cause I can't help but feel the way I do. 'Cause I can't help but feel the way I do. 'Cause I can't help but feel the way I do. 'Cause I can't help but feel the way I do. 'Cause I can't help but feel the way I do. 'Cause I can't help but feel the way I do. 'Cause I can't help but feel the way I do. 'Cause I can't help but feel the way I do. 'Cause I can't help but feel the way I do. 'Cause I can't help but feel the way I do. 'Cause I can't help but feel the way I do. 'Cause I can't help but feel the way I do. 'Cause I can't help but feel the way I do. 'Cause I can't help but feel the way I do. 'Cause I can't help but feel the way I do. ' Bobby McFerrin performing the classic Round Midnight, which was also part of the soundtrack of the movie of the same name, which featured the great saxophone master Dexter Gordon in a starring role. It seemed the man could act as well as play the saxophone. And if you've never seen that movie, I suggest looking it up, because it's one of those movies that, well, it's just beautiful and anyway, look it up. It's got the Dawoud seal of approval. Let's continue. This is a piece that I dug up a long time ago. It's an old doo-wop song by a group called the Diablos. Another beautiful piece. This is called Wind. In keeping with the tradition that I try to keep up with, of giving some play to local artists, that was a piece called Maps of Absence by a local ensemble called Turning Jewels into Water. And that features the electronic and acoustic percussion mastery of Ravish Momin, a gentleman whom I had performed with a number of times myself, and he has done a lot of great things. He also played and performed with and toured with Shakira, the great pop star and singer. And you are listening. Oh, and before that was Wind by the Diablos. And you are still listening to the Overnight Shift on AM 930 WPAT, and I am still Dawoud the Renegade Sufi. Let's continue. This is a piece that you probably know well. If you are a jazz fan, I'm sure that this will come as no surprise to you, but it's something worth playing. There's a piece by the great John Coltrane, arguably one of the greatest saxophone players who ever walked the face of the earth. And this is arguably the most feared piece in jazz because of its inherent harmonic complexity. I am speaking, of course, of Giant Steps. That was a rare piece by a group called Joe Bird and the Field Hippies. They did one album, led, of course, by musical visionary Joe Bird, and that album was called The American Metaphysical Circus. And the piece was called Kalyani. And there's a couple of things that may interest you about that. The first thing is that the piece itself is actually based on a classical Indian raga, Kalyani. And the second thing is that you heard all those weird psychedelic synthesizer sounds. The album was recorded, I believe, in 1967, 66, which was actually years before the first portable, commercially available synthesizers were on the market. They had actually gotten their hands on some oscillators and the echo devices and some other things and filters and whatnot, and produced those sounds the hard way. These people were pioneers in early electronic music. And before that, of course, the classic Giant Steps by John Coltrane. Let's change things up a little bit, because after all, this is an eclectic mix of music. This is a piece that I think you will know and that you'll love. It's called Natural Mystic by Bob Marley. That, my friends, was David Sanborn with the piece called Benny. I don't know who Benny is, but I always liked that piece. And before that, the great Bob Marley with the great piece, Natural Mystic. We're about 4.5 minutes or so in front of the 4 a.m. hour on this Saturday, May 4th morning. And I am still Dawoud the Renegade Sufi. This is a piece which should take us to the top of the hour and perhaps even beyond. This is a piece by a musician and composer from Beirut, Rabbi Abu Khalil. This is from an album of his called, what was the album called? Blue Camel. Yes, that's it. Pardon my defective memory. And this is one of the pieces on it called A Night on the Mountain. Let's hear what A Night on the Mountain sounds like. That was this week's segment of the Overnight Shift, featuring yours truly, Dawoud the Renegade Sufi. Allah willing, I will see you next week. Until then, peace.